Jennifer, so behave yourself.
Oh, I'll
Hey,
try.
everybody. Yeah, you're not going to make it. Hey, everybody. I'm Kendall Young with Diggs. Thanks so much for joining Diggs Live, where we try to answer the question, I'd love to sell my California, my Glendale house for today's top dollar, but where would I go? I'm talking to my real estate friends across the country to find out what it's like to buy a house and live in their neck of the woods. Today, we're talking to Jennifer Kjellgren from In Town Experts, and she is the expert for Midtown Atlanta. And if you guys are like me, you've never been outside Los Angeles, you might know that might not know that Atlanta is like Los Angeles. It's a huge area. There's all kinds of neighborhoods. And Jennifer's little corner of Atlanta is just uber cool and not what you might think that Georgia might be. So Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on my show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, and only if you decide to behave yourself.
Okay.
Otherwise, I control the feed and I can cut it anytime, girlfriend.
All right. All I can say is hot kettle.
Yeah, I know. I only talk to people who are like myself. It's kind of a challenge there. So, all right. So before people will be willing to listen to our show and trust your opinion as something that's truthful, can you give me a little background about who you are as a real estate agent and why anyone should care about your opinions?
Sure. So I have been in real estate since 2000, so I'm going on 18 years. When I got into real estate, I was in sales in corporate America prior to. I decided that I wanted to do hyper local, and I don't think I called it that. I don't think it was a term back then.
Yeah, we didn't
but yeah, I had lived in the middle of the city since I've lived in Atlanta since 91, and I commuted out for work. And I felt like I had these two lives. I had a work life in the suburbs and a personal life in town, and I felt like they were very disconnected. And so getting into real estate, I made a decision that I wanted to live, work, and play in these neighborhoods. And everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, why do you want to focus? Why don't you want to do that? And I didn't want to be in my car 24/7. And I know most people who have heard about Atlanta have heard about our traffic. And I will say that it's really cool to walk the talk. I walk to work every day. I live in pretty much a 2 or 3 mile radius, and it's very possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was the foundation of my real estate business. And then I grew into a real estate team. And then in 2015, I took the plunge and decided in order to really do what we want to do, we've got to be our own brand and brokerage. And that is the journey that I'm on right now.
Sounds like a familiar journey somehow.
I know.
Jennifer, for those of you who don't know, Jennifer was part of my original close group of real estate friends that actually helped me name Diggs. So you've been in on the ground floor with me. I've been on the ground floor with you. Guys, Jennifer is like, if you like what Diggs is doing, Jennifer is like my counterpart, but in Atlanta.
Except
super
not as
cool.
techie.
Your husband is, so
Okay.
It's cool. Yeah, right?
Right.
All right, so I've told everybody that Atlanta is this huge metropolis with all kinds of stuff, and God only knows what anybody listening to this broadcast might be assuming Atlanta is. And guys, those of you who are listening now, if you have any questions, please drop them into the comments. I can see them, and I can ask Jennifer these questions while we're doing this. If you're watching this on a replay, and most of you will, you can still drop some comments right there in the bottom of your screen. I will answer them, and if I can't answer them, I will go to Jennifer, get the answers, and I'll get them to you. So don't hesitate to put those comments in there. So Atlanta's a big metropolis, but you're in a very specific neighborhood called Midtown, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you love about the Midtown area?
Yeah. Well, let me just give you a little context in Atlanta.
Please do.
Atlanta Metro is the size of the state of Massachusetts. It is massive, spanning, depending on who you ask, anywhere from 14 to 39 counties. So, I mean, literally, it's the size of a state. Midtown is one of the original urban core neighborhoods. The oldest housing stock here was built in the 1880s. And so when Atlanta really started as a city in the 1850s, this is one of the original neighborhoods that started. And Midtown is just north of downtown. It has one of Atlanta's most iconic landmarks, Piedmont Park, which was actually designed by the same landscape architect family as Central Park in New York was.
Wow.
It is a very diverse and eclectic neighborhood with a very a big urban core in terms of business, and it's one of the only parts of Atlanta that's on a grid. So we have 3 transportation stops, MARTA train stations, which is the only neighborhood in Atlanta that has that. And so it's really grown because of that kind of access and because of the grid. So I live in a 110-year-old house on a street with sidewalks. Nothing is the same. You've got a lot of Victorian, craftsman, bungalow type architecture, and then you have a mix of a lot of new construction. Probably it started in the 80s and really peaked again in the early 2000s of very modern concrete, glass, and steel high-rises. So down the middle corridor, Peachtree Street, which we've got a lot of them, you can find these buildings, and then 2 or 3 blocks over, you're on these beautiful tree-lined canopy streets with sidewalks, and just an older or organic feeling neighborhood. Very walkable.
Okay. So, and because when I came to Atlanta, because I got to visit, Atlanta's been one of the few places I've been in this country more than once, you know. I saw lots of shiny buildings just like in downtown Los Angeles, but your neck of the woods was like super different, like you said, older buildings and whatnot. So it not only sounds charming, dudes, I've been there. It is super charming. Jennifer's front porch and back porch are to die for. Love them. Tell me what the people are like, because we're in Los Angeles. We kind of assume everybody in the South is a redneck, and I'm discovering it's not really that way. But tell me what Midtown is like.
And you know, when I moved here from Florida, I kind of thought the same thing. I would say that Midtown is probably the most diverse city in Atlanta. You have a lot of transplants, so people coming to Atlanta from major metropolitan areas. A good number of them settle here, so it's a very mixed bunch. You have, being from and in the South, you have Southern hospitality. And, you know, I really didn't realize how friendly the people were here until I moved away for 18 months in the 90s and went back down to Florida. And people in Atlanta, you walk down the street, they look you in the eye, they say hello. So you have that kindness about you. Right. Yet it has a bit more of a bustling metropolis versus some of the other areas, because you've got people who are used to living in other metropolitan cities. So it's a mixed bag, which I love.
You once told me that Midtown was awesome because the people there's lots of all kinds of races, there's all kinds of religions, sexual orientations, politics.
Absolutely.
Right?
Love it. Yeah. And I mean, Atlanta is not a racially diverse city at all, sadly. And when you look at the map, and this is the neighborhood that it's kind of the place where everything interconvenes. And I love that. And we have a child, love raising her in that kind of an environment where people are people, and it really doesn't matter, you know, what color you are, what your politics are, who you're married to.
You're saying if I came to visit you in Atlanta, I wouldn't have to make my hair all big and blonde and stuff. It's good, because I wouldn't look good at big. Guys, I've seen a lot of people that are coming in to view our show, which is so exciting. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the comments below. We'll answer them as we go. So the point of this show is for people who might be wanting to really honestly kind of downsize, maybe pay cash for a house and live the easier life. But some might even be able to work remotely, or they have jobs that are transplantable. What would kind of a middle to upper middle class house look like in your neck of the woods, and how much would it cost?
Well, it's changed dramatically over the years, and I would say if there's one complaint that I have, it's that the affordability has gone out the roof. So,
I have a feeling we're still going to think it's really affordable, so drop it on me, girl.
So in our neighborhood and the directly surrounding neighborhoods of Virginia Highland and Morningside, A starter house, you're looking at about $500,000. Average price point in these neighborhoods now is the 7s to the 9s. Now,
really? Okay.
Now that has had a huge impact because during this recent boom, there have been a lot of spec building where they've basically purchased lots at $500,000 and are building new. So it's where it used to be in the 6s, it's had a dramatic leap over the last couple of years. The original housing stock in the area is typically going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1930s bungalow style front porch. We had a lot of pre-war architecture in these neighborhoods. They were built in the 20s and 30s for the most part. And then on the flip side, you have a lot of new construction. So I would say that if you really have a downsizer who does not want to live in a house, you've got a lot of opportunities in a condominium. And whether it's a open concrete floor kind of glass building to something of a more authentic loft, you're looking starting in the mid 300s, going up into the mid 500s for either a small to a larger 2-bedroom. There's a big range there.
Okay, big range. That actually is pricier than what I thought it would be, but Atlanta is a real major metropolitan area. Yeah.
I mean, the average price in the metro area is in the mid 200s. So we are in a completely different market down here. And, it's awesome. And I think a lot of people have found out that it's awesome and it's driven the prices up.
Right. Well, I shouldn't say millennials because I hate that term now, but people who are looking to establish households, loving that walkable lifestyle. And I know from experience that that's what you have there.
Yeah. So and it's becoming a problem because these people are renting. Right. They're spending $1,500, $1,600 a month to rent a 1-bedroom up to, $2,500 for a 2. And then when they go in the market to buy, they're not able to necessarily stay in the same neighborhood. And it's created a whole different set of challenges with affordability.
Right. And I'm guessing your inventory is as tight as it is out here?
No, I mean, we're under a month of inventory in most of these markets, but we don't get 10, 12 offers on a property when we hit the market.
Okay, but you have tight inventory, but not quite okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah. And there's 2. So if right now you're coming into these neighborhoods and you have between like $1 million and 1.4, you're in a buyer's market. You have all sorts of choices. If you're coming into these neighborhoods and your budget is $500,000-$600,000, that is where it's super, super tight. So I mean, I'm in the process of almost breaking down our inventory based on price points because there's 2 different markets in these neighborhoods.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. A lot of new people that have joined us on the recording, on the show. If you have any comments or questions for Jennifer, we're talking about Midtown Atlanta. Please drop your comments down below and we'll answer them as we go. So let's talk about cost of living. In a lot of areas, people that I've talked to, I've discovered that property taxes are a real concern. What are property taxes like in Atlanta?
They're about $1.75 per thousand. So the houses that we're talking about right now are going to average at about $10,000, anywhere from I'd say $8,000 to $12,000 a month, a year.
A year. Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah, a year. I mean, so
minor heart attack.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're not sorry.
They're high, and living in the city of Atlanta, we have 2 property tax bills, so you are paying for that. If you get outside of the city limits, they go down, but then so do the services and amenities.
So my bigger question is, I get that. So the taxes are a certain amount when you buy the property, and you can budget for that, and that's fine. I'm more curious about volatility. What happens after? Do they rise, willy-nilly or what?
Well, we have some issues in city of Atlanta and Fulton County. They tried to make a rise this year, and people's tax bills went up by 20, 30, 40%. There was a massive uproar. Attorneys found a little piece in the tax code back from over 100 years ago where they did a moratorium. So right now they're frozen. They have been determined on the market. Historically they've gone up slow and steadily. What just happened this year was it really shocked everybody. you really don't have the ability like you do in states like Florida to really kind of lock in and freeze your taxes as much. A little bit as a retired person, but not nearly as much. But I'd say pretty stable in general.
Okay, in general.
We'll see what happens after this year. This has been a wild card they threw at us.
Watch out. That's what happened to us in California in, I think, the 70s, and that's how we got Prop 13. So, all right, hang on a quick second. Let's see. Oh, I was going to ask you about the people. So we kind of talked about that, but we didn't talk about like lifestyle. Okay. So what do the people in Midtown, what do they do for like hobbies, leisure? How do they spend their lives? What are you guys into?
Atlanta is a very pet-friendly city. There are, I swear, almost everybody has a dog here. So you see a lot of people out walking their dogs. We've got some awesome dog parks. I happen to be a new dog owner myself, so I'm learning all of these things. Atlanta's got an amazing dining scene. Why are you laughing?
About your cat that was like a dog. Sorry.
We have great restaurants, very like independent style, not a lot of chain restaurants down here. Some chefs that have really made a good name for themselves. Being outside. So whether you like to walk around and hike or ride your bike, a lot of what is driving people to these neighborhoods is the ability to survive outside of a car. So you can commute to work cycling or walking, and people typically tend to want to be a little bit more outdoorsy. I'd say in terms of jobs, it's a mixed bag. Like our street, we've got neighbors who've lived there for 30, 40 years who are, empty nesters, retirees, to young professionals. I would say over the last 25 years, the neighborhoods have really transitioned and become more family friendly than they had been in the past. So versus people moving in the city when they're young and then moving out to the burbs when they have kids, they're now staying, and that's positively impacted the schools. So people are staying here longer than they have historically.
Right. Okay. Okay, cool. And that kind of leads me to the next thing that I'm always curious about, because we live in Los Angeles where the weather doesn't vary very much. So tell me the truth about the weather. I've heard the South gets really hot and humid. Tell me the truth about the weather.
It gets really hot and humid in the summer. I'll come stay in California from June until August. I find the older I get, the harder it is. Our springs and falls are amazing. We get 4 true seasons here. And they're probably similar. Our spring and fall is probably similar to the weather that you have out there, with lows in the 50s in the evening and maybe high 60s, low 70s during the day. So and that's what Atlanta's known for. We've got so much. Atlanta's called a city in a forest. We've got tons of trees. And so all of that, when it changes during both of those seasons, is really magnificent. Summer's hot. It's pretty brutal, I think. And winter is just blah.
Okay, well, wait, back it up for just a quick second. When you say the summers are pretty brutal, I mean, I was talking to a good friend of ours, Elizabeth, Cooper Golden, and she was talking about, heat index for a couple of weeks there that it's like 118, which
it doesn't get that bad.
Okay, all right. So what does it look like?
In like the mid to high 90s with probably 80-something% humidity. I'm a hot-natured person, unlike Elizabeth. So for me, it's just that's not weather you want to be outside in. But it's rare that we break 100 degrees. It's really, I'd say 90s, and it's just that humidity is oppressive.
Okay.
And if you like the heat, it's great.
And you had said that there's a lot of outdoor lifestyle. So are people just out and about in that humidity? You just get used to it?
They are. I have this conversation with people. There's a lot of people who love that. And, more power to them. Like I do my outside stuff in the mornings during that time of the year, and I'm in by 9 in terms of walking the dog and exercising. I mean, you really in Atlanta can have a 9 to 10 month outdoor lifestyle. There might be the winter. We rarely get snow. When we get snow, it's all over the news and the city shuts down because everything ices. It's crazy. And then, so we'll have a little bit of that, but the winter is completely bearable. And then you've got your super hot times in the summer. And you plan around it. But compared to Florida or Arizona, we don't have anything to complain about.
Those people would, they're like, yeah, no, it's not that big a deal.
110, yeah.
It's 118 outside, but it's a dry heat.
It's right, like an oven.
Yeah, exactly. I have said on occasion, my oven's dry too. I'll stick my head in it, but
right.
All right. So, if someone were wanting to come to Atlanta because they want, and by the way, if anybody has ever been to the Atlanta airport, it is freaking amazing.
It's one of the best ones.
And I would think that that would make Atlanta a great place for someone who needs to travel for business or what have you, right?
Yeah, it's tremendously well. And Amazon is looking at us pretty heavily, apparently, in their move because of all that. Yeah, right. Traveling in and out of Atlanta, you can get anywhere direct, which is phenomenal.
Given that, if somebody was thinking, you know what, I'm tired of the LA lifestyle. I'd like to go someplace where the culture is a little bit different, the lifestyle maybe is a little bit slower. I like the heat. I want to be closer to the Eastern Seaboard, whatever there are things. What up and coming neighborhood would you recommend somebody Google and start exploring?
There would need to be a lot more questions before I gave my neighborhood, because really, so In Town, the name of our company, is a collection of several urban core neighborhoods, and you have neighborhoods that are next to each other that might look the same initially, but the vibe is different. The people who live there are different. One might be a little more artsy, one might be a little bit more like educational professor like. So I would ask the person what they liked.
Well, let me ask you, so I know that you have a lot of information about all those different neighborhoods on your website. What's the website address? Just throw it on the screen here for everybody.
InTownExpert.com.
Expert.com. Okay, guys, I'm going to throw that up on the screen. So that's InTownExpert.com. Do you still have the quiz there on your website?
I don't.
Oh, snap. That thing was cool. Well, there's a ton of information. There's videos, pictures, and some examples of what houses would cost in those various neighborhoods, because she was talking about the different textures of the neighborhoods, and those are all, it's kind of like, it actually, so like straight up, I ripped off a lot of stuff on my website that you see. I got those ideas from Jennifer. So if you like my website, you'll really like hers. Hey, I am giving you a lot of.
I
know.
Right? That's a big thing coming from you.
Right? Rip off and duplicate, baby. Some of the smartest minds in real estate. We got that idea from somebody else. Oh my gosh. What else are the kinds of things that you tell people? Because I know you have a lot of Californians that come out to Atlanta and relocate there. So what kinds of things do you tell them?
I think in general, the cost of living is less here. The lifestyle is much easier. There's something to be said for this genteel Southern hospitality, the advantages you get from a large city, the culture, the arts, the job opportunities, but the slower pace and the trees, the greenery in the city. And I mean, there's neighborhoods where are just these most beautiful neighborhoods. I'm thinking of, Ansley Park, and you peek through the trees and you see buildings popping out. I mean, it's just a very unusual dynamic. So Atlanta's easy to live in. And if you do not have to commute for work and you can live and work close to each other, you can have an amazing, easy lifestyle here. I think it's a great place to raise a family. People come. A lot of a trend, and a lot of the people that we work with are Atlantans, but they live in the outer suburbs. And then when they go through the empty nester stage, come in because they want to have the vibe of the city. It's been because they're re-education of people whose experience of Atlanta was 20, 30 years ago, and you didn't go downtown, and that's changed now.
It's kind of like us for downtown Los Angeles. You didn't go there, now it's cool. And that's the lifestyle you're living. Think about it that way, guys. It's like downtown LA is cool. Midtown, in town Atlanta is super cool. Well, we've just about run out of time. This has been, I knew it was going to be a lot of fun. It totally was.
Aw, thanks.
Oh. Now, any of you who are looking at this on the replay, if you have some questions about Atlanta or anything like that, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. If I can't answer it, I will get answers from Jennifer and I'll put that in there. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on my show. I can't wait till the next time we see each other. And
I know.
right?
Thanks for having me.
Always. Okay, kisses.
Bye,
We'll talk to
sister.
you later. All right, bye. Peace out.